Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli back with another review video. And guys, we come to our last Halloweenish review for the weekdays. Yes. So, the last Halloweenish film that I am now about to review to round things off and such. Yes. And I think this was a pretty good choice. And ever since, when planning, for this batch of Halloweenish reviews, I knew instantly that this was going to be the grand finale. And I'm so happy to see it is. Yes. That's right, guys. I am now finally reviewing one of my top anticipated films for 2025. That being from the genius mind of Ryan Coogler, and as you guys remember how I teased in the second to last Halloweenish review, yes. From Ryan Coogler himself, Warner Brothers, yes, this is Sinners. Sinners, oh yes. Yeah, so where to begin? Because, to go ahead and get into my first thoughts and what I have to say about Ryan Coogler's Sinners, well, ever since it was announced that Ryan Coogler, the same dude who brought us Black Panther to life on the big screen, where Black Panther finally got to shine in his first movie, then when it came to the sequel, Wakanda Forever, that all turned out really good. A continuation, and how they managed to continue the story of Black Panther, all of Wakanda, without its main character himself. And in the case of Chadwick Boseman, yes. And so after, he had done the Black Panther films, one of Coogler's next projects, and, because I was there from the beginning, ever since I heard about it, that Ryan Coogler was going to be working and bringing to life his very own vampire film. And with the announcements on whom was going to be a part of the cast, from Michael to Haley, and everybody just, I was really pumped. I was really excited for this. Because, as I've explained before, I love me some vampires. I like any film. Depends, on anything that has to do with vampires, and I'm sure the same goes for you. Of course, I love me some Dracula, for one big thing, or, hey, say, this guy. But yes. And when seeing some of the behind-the-scenes photos, and then say when we, of course, got the trailers, all that build-up to it, everybody, not just me, I'm sure the same goes for some of you, all excited for what Ryan Coogler was going to bring to life in his very own vampire flick. And with all that excitement and such we had been waiting for, and when the film itself finally came out, and I was happy that, and I had to, I was determined to see this in theaters, because definitely Sinners is worth seeing in theaters. And I'm sure you guys would feel the same way too. Yeah, me and my dad having to see it, and my dad, he actually thought it was not bad. He thought it was pretty good, and he thought it was in the end, he thought it was a good suggestion that I made on which movie me and him could see, should go see. And in the case of Sinners, but for me personally, pardon my French, but it's true. I just loved the entire hell out of it. I really did. And having done a rewatch, and as you saw the thumbnail, I showed it, it's definitely, and if I'm correct, and also in my opinion, Ryan Coogler's Sinners is definitely one of his top masterpieces, a really fantastic vampire film. I'd say being up there with some of the other great ones. And like any of the other vampire films, how the vampires are portrayed in this being completely different, and that's good. And it's done in a good way, definitely. It's very clever and interesting how they do the specific stuff, from, say, the death of the vampire, the use of stuff they are allergic to from garlic, or, say, holy water, all of that. It's amazing. And just, with great talents, the characters that were brought to life in this, Ryan Coogler's direction, Ludwig's music and score, you know who I'm talking about, the same dude from, the Black Panther films and The Mandalorian. Yeah, it's that guy. the set and designs, the setting of this film taking place in early 1930s Mississippi, and the suspense, and a few funny moments here and there, the emotional moments, the drama in this, how the vampires are done, just, yeah, it's amazing. And of course, like, also, the film's cinematography, its visual effects and all that, you know? And the fact that we have two dueling Michael B. Jordans, it's amazing. But until I talk more about the two duo characters that Jordan plays, yeah, just overall, I really enjoyed Sinners the first time I got to see it in all of its glory and having done a rewatch. And I'd say, yeah, Sinners would probably be in my top favorite movies of all time. This is because, yeah, this is definitely a cinematic masterpiece. And, you know, this being one of those Warner Brothers films that really made a big top, especially in the box office, right next to, say, James Gunn's Superman, Weapons, and, well, even a Minecraft movie as well, and a couple of others that I'm sure you know of too. Just, yeah, what more do I have to say? But to round off the first things I have to say about Sinners, it is without a doubt a top, epic, awesome vampire film, a masterpiece, one of Ryan Coogler's best films that he's done after, say, Black Panther. Need I go on? Okay, so with the first things I've had to say about Sinners now out of the way, now as always, for me, read the description / the story. Trying to leave their troubled lives behind, twin brothers return to their Mississippi hometown to start again, only to discover that an even greater evil is waiting to welcome them back. Okay, so now with reading the description / the story out of the way, let us now dive in / break down the film itself. In we go. Well, the movie doesn't waste any time to open off on a pretty good and interesting start, because it starts off with some narration and some sketches that are shown, and basically every legend is that is born is gifted with the ability to bring fantastic music to life, and they go by various names. One most prominently that is brought up is Griot. Yeah, Griot. Yeah, because, you know, basically Griot, where the protagonist is a blues musician and who embodies the role of a griot. That's, yeah. And, yeah, of a West African storyteller. Yeah. And we just so happen to see the griot himself, that being young Sammy Moore, and Sammy being played by Miles Catton. Well, basically, he has just arrived outside of a church, and he's all messed up because he's got blood and such on him. Like, what happened to him specifically? And he goes to the church, he meets with his father, whom is a priest, and basically because asking for forgiveness and all that. And we do see a couple of flashing shots of, well, whom is the vampire, the main vampire / one of the antagonists of this film. And Sammy's father, you know, telling him to, you know, put the guitar down, or, you know, what's left of the guitar, basically, leave behind what he was doing and, you know, be reborn and all that, you know, with what he specifically says. And, well, it seems as though that he's going to do so. Will he? Well, actually, right after that, we come to one day early, how this all happened, where it all began, and why we literally saw Sammy, how he is, and he went through some hell, basically, and all that. And again, the time and setting of Sinners taking place in early 1930s Mississippi, okay? And Sammy, well, because we can see that he's happy-go-lucky and such, and he was doing some stuff at a cotton field, and it's meant he's asked on where he's going to be playing music and such by Beatrice. Beatrice being played by Tiana L. Jackson. Yeah, that's right. And also, because we even have, say, yeah, that's right, because Sammy's father, who's also a priest, Jedediah, being played by Saul Williams, that's him. And there was also Ruthie, being played by Andrean Ward Hammond, that's right. Anyways, so then we would come to one of our other main characters, twin brothers, although technically they're referred to as cousins. But, yeah, because, like, yeah, I mean, even I had a conversation, I think, with each of my parents that sometimes, cousins can look very identical, as if they're twins, but they're really not. But, presumably, they really are twin brothers. Smoke and Stack. And it's very clever whom you can tell which is which, especially on account of the color of their wardrobe. Stack is wearing somewhat of red, and Smoke is wearing somewhat of blue. And he's literally got a blue cap and such. And while Stack, he's got like a nice like reddish hat, you know what I'm saying? And basically, they just came back from Chicago and trying to do something new and better with their lives. Not to mention that they were collecting some money from a lot of gangsters. And the Stack brothers, as they're referred to, they are well aware by a lot of those in Chicago. And, so they meet with someone whom, Smoke and Stack, and by the way, because, Smoke and Stack, both being played by Michael B. Jordan himself. I'll talk about Michael B. Jordan and his performance as those two in just a moment, but as I was about to say, they meet with a guy named Hogwood. Hogwood being played by Dave Milanoedo. I'm butchering his last name again, sometimes. Anyways, so they meet with Hogwood, whom basically is about to hand over to Smoke and Stack I'm blanking on the word because, sawmill. Sawmill. Good thing I remembered. Lending them a sawmill because Smoke and Stack, they're going to do something with this sawmill. And, because things kind of get a little bit intense. They were almost about to whip guns at one of them, but, then eventually in Hogwood, he doesn't want to give any trouble or anything like that, and neither does Smoke and Stack, and, well, they would hand the money to Hogwood, and they point out to Hogwood that none of his clang should not be here. Like, if any of his clang members show up, then, there will be some trouble. And not to mention that Hogwood, he is the main boss of this clang. Which I'll go ahead and name it. He's the leader or Grand Dragon of the local Ku Klux Klan. But even Hogwood, he informs and addresses, I should say, to Smoke and Stack that the Klan went out of business. So they don't have to worry anything about that. Or is he telling the truth? I would probably think he isn't, and we know that by now, but until I get there, okay? Anyway, and not to mention that, because Hogwood is such a huge racist asshole, literally. He's a racist landowner, and, and again, because he sells the sawmill to the twin brothers, and, and all while recently plotting, and he's... If it's not obvious, that something that Hogwood is going to be doing, just something about Hogwood overall, just doesn't smell right, clearly. Anyways, and that's not the last we see of him. Oh, we see Hogwood very later on in the film, but until we get there, of course. So what Smoke and Stack are going to do with this sawmill that has now been acquired, that's now in their possession, basically... they're going to open a juke joint for the local black community, the African-American community, and so on. And basically, it's used by the African-Americans, juke joint, as, a term and such for, dancing, music, singing, and, there will be some food and drinks, all that. So, simple as that. No harm done with what they're doing, basically. And this time, Smoke and Stack, seems as though they're doing something pretty good. And Sammy, because he'd make his way over to the church where his father works at, and, his father has a guitar out for his son that Sammy can use on account of what Smoke and Stack are doing. Not to mention that Sammy is in relation with Smoke and Stack. he's their little cousin. So yeah, nice to see. And there's like a quick moment where Sammy helps out his father Jedediah some with reading from the Bible and all that. But at the same time, Jedediah is not really too fond with what Sammy's doing and wanting his son to let the devil out of him and all that. Just, but hopefully nothing bad could go on for Sammy, and all he's doing is just simple and harmless, just performing, and he's quite good at that, especially with the blues, on the guitar. So, yeah, then Smoke and Stack, they would pick up Sammy. Then they would go to this field where there's a truck waiting for them to, drive and use on account of the juke joint and all that. And even when, say, at one point they deal with a rattlesnake that was hiding in the back of the truck. Luckily for Stack, he was tossed a knife by Smoke, and basically using it to stab the head of the snake, not impaling it, just, severely wounding the rattlesnake. And, they would split up for a little bit. Stack would have Sammy be alongside with him to go into town, while Smoke, Smoke is going to be doing that. He's going to go into town while Stack is with Sammy. Yeah, okay, so let me rephrase that, because I was kind of sidetracked. Stack would go on his merry way along with Sammy to pick up some others to be a part of the juke joint, while Smoke, he would go into town on that truck to get some supplies and all that. There we go. Yeah, so I got a bit sidetracked. Okay. And yeah, because for Smoke, because he goes into town and he meets with the Chow family. We have Lisa Chow, whom is the daughter of Bo Chow. And Lisa being played by Helena Hugh, and Bo Chow being played by Yeo. Smoke, he asks Bo like a favor, and they know each other, and they're good friends. Bo he asks Bo to have some food and all that on account of the juke joint, and not to mention that Smoke interacted with this one girl to this being credited as teenager. Well, at least we know who she is and what her character's name is, what she goes by. The teenager being played by Adian Enclarade, if I said that right, to keep watch on the truck. If anything happens, she honks on the horn. Not to mention that Smoke was getting her to talk some money, because how much money he's going to give to her in order to do what he asked her to do, keep watch and guard on the truck, be at the front wheel. But yeah, at one point, because she does honk the horn, because there are those that, there's two guys that are, messing with the truck. They're getting something from the back of the truck. And after he shoots one of them, he recognizes one of them, which being Terry. Terry being played by Sam Maloney, yeah. And he's credited as Second Thief. Second Thief being played by Jaquan Monroe Henderson, yeah. Because, they didn't believe the teenager at first with what the instructions were that she was given to by Smoke and all that. But in the end, it seemed to turn out fine. But with the exception of, Smoke shooting the second thief's leg, because he shot one of Terry's legs, now he does the same to the second thief. But yeah, anyways. And also, not to mention that when Smoke would get back into conversation with Mr. Chow, he also asks, and which would lead to the daughter going over to another store to call up her mother, Grace Chow. Grace Chow being played by Lee Jun Lee. Yeah, I think I got that right. Basically, what Grace can do, and when she would help out, and after making a deal with Smoke, money talk and all that, how much he's willing to pay and all that, basically make a sign for the juke joint and all that. And not to mention that both Bo and Grace, they will be there, helping out with the juke joint and such. Nice to see. Okay, and coming back to Stack and Sammy, and by the way, I was hoping that I would not be confused on, which twin I was talking about, and as what happened a little earlier, but okay, now I'm good. Alright. Okay. As I was saying, coming back to Stack and Sammy, because, this would be brought up where we would get some, a little bit of like backstory with Stack and Smoke on their father. Basically, Stack explains to Sammy about he and Smoke's father that, well, sadly, their father was an abusive, mean father. He would beat them up constantly, most prominently on Stack. And at some point, it was Smoke who took it upon himself to kill their father. And of course, that led to Smoke having saved his identical twin. Yeah, good on him. So, yeah. And also because, like, anything on, like, say, their mother, because it would have been nice, but, I mean, it was fine, Lord knows, like, what specifically, what was going wrong and so on with both of their parents, just, man. But, anyways, getting back on point, because then after that, well, Stack would have Sammy play something on the guitar, see how good he is and such. And man, Sammy just really starts to play on the guitar, singing and all that, and Stack is digging it. Yeah, and, well, that shows that Sammy is going to be fantastic at the juke. Then at one point, they would arrive at a train station where they would come across and basically consider having him come to the juke joint. Delta Slim playing on a harmonica, but Delta at first is not interested whatsoever, but through money talk and all that, and also mentioning about some Irish beer that they're going to have at the juke joint, eventually they managed to convince Delta to be a part of this. You even say when Delta would then perform and a group of people would be entertained, and Stack would make an announcement that they're all invited to come to the juke joint and such. Yep, fellow African Americans like him and Sammy to come to the juke joint that's going to be happening and opening this evening. And the attention of that came straight from both Stack and Sammy. Well, for Sammy, he would cross paths with supposedly this married woman, Perline, being played by Jamie Lawson, and, the way they're interacting with each other, not to mention that Perline is a singer of her own, and it doesn't take too long for Sammy to convince her that maybe she should come up to the juke joint and such. But someone else that has the attention of Stack, is noticed by Stack and such, is an ex-girlfriend of his. Enter Mary herself, played by the beautiful, talented, you get my point, Kate Bishop herself, Hailee Steinfeld. Yes. Another great talent in this. And by the way, because to talk more about with whom I've talked about so far, the cast members that are part of this film, yeah, because Michael B. Jordan, first off, just fantastic duo, twins, and just the cinematography, the camera angles, all of that. Putting two Michael B. Jordans together is fantastic. And how amazing Michael B. Jordan is for us to quickly, figure out, which is which, especially on account of each of their personalities. Besides their colored wardrobe, yeah. Just these two characters that Michael B. Jordan brings to life, duo performance from him, just excellent. Need I go on? Just excellent, excellent, excellent. Yeah. And Hailee Steinfeld, yeah, because Hailee Steinfeld, she too does not disappoint in this, no siree. Her performance is Mary, and man, because to talk about, because where Mary would reunite with her ex, which means Stack, and just this was only, say, yesterday, because they had sex and all that, and just saying a couple of sexual stuff, and just, Stack telling her to keep her voice down and all that, and she's completely pissed off at Stack for him leaving her for no reason whatsoever. But, it's hard for her to understand, and what we learn later on, that there was technically a reason why he just flat out ditched her. It's very complicated, especially since he and his twin, they came from Chicago, dealing with gangsters and all that. Yeah, obviously, but the more details we get from him later on. Well, not to mention that Mary, she is in town on account that she just lost her mother. Her mother was buried and all that. And, she pins this on Stack, and also on account of Smoke, that they didn't bother showing up to the funeral. Not to mention that, Mary's mother was a very kind woman to Smoke and Stack, and treating them like they were her own children and such. Yeah. But, again, Stack, he has his reasons, and, we can tell even later on that, the more interactions that each of them have, he hated doing what he had to do, but it was for a good reason and very complicated and such, yeah. But as I was saying, with Hailee Steinfeld's performance as Mary, just again, fantastic. The accent she delivers as the character of Mary, fantastic. Just everything about Mary, and, well, we knew right away that, even on account of the trailers and all that, yeah, we were getting a few spoilers, and whom was going to become a vampire. Yeah, but until I get there, yeah, Hailee Steinfeld, amazing, fantastic, yeah, in this movie. Yeah, great to see. Not to mention that, because we've got a few people in this movie whom, they've been a part of the MCU, and there's one more that I'm about to get to momentarily, but yeah, because, yeah, for Michael B. Jordan and Hailee Steinfeld and Ryan Coogler, all three of them being a part of Marvel, just, yeah. Also, fun fact, and while I'm thinking of this, and while on the subject of Marvel, because apparently many of the costumes in Sinners were originally going to be used for the Blade movie. Very interesting. And maybe some of you are aware of this, but I just thought I'd share that because, well, it's true, technically. Anyways. So, yeah. So, the little reunion between Mary and Stack, well, I mean, it doesn't go too well, and since we already discover, and according to Mary, because they were in a loving relationship, but then just, yeah, out of nowhere, Stack ditched her, and from there on, just, yeah. But after that, well, Stack, Sammy, and along with them, Delta, they proceed on their merry journey and to continue with preparations for the juke joint this evening. So while the three of them are on the road, Delta would mention to both Stack and Sammy about a friend of his who was lynched by a clan group by the name of Rice. But then, we would see where Stack is about to pick up someone else that he knows of, and that being Cornbread. Cornbread being played by Omar Benson Miller. Basically, he wants to hire Cornbread to be a bouncer, basically, yeah. And Cornbread, I mean, he's not interested at first, even when, like, say, because he's now a married guy. We have his wife, Therice, yeah, I think I said that right, being played by Amoni Ellison. And, well, at first, Stack makes an insult towards Cornbread and even say on his wife and all that, you're gonna have sex with her and all that kind of talk, but with the F-bomb. But, in the end, and overall, Stack manages to convince Cornbread that, yeah, Cornbread's gonna make some pretty good money being the bouncer and all that, watching over, like, anybody whom is gonna come into the sawmill, which now being the juke joint, come on in and all that, just, yeah. Anyways, then, when we come back to Smoke, well, this is where we see another familiar face in this movie who, yeah, as I said earlier, that someone else from the MCU is also in Sinners, and that being Wunmi Mosaku, if I even got her entire name right, but you know who it is, of course, and you know who I'm talking about. Just, yeah, again, bear with me. She plays Annie, which, yeah, she's in links with Smoke, them being in a relationship and such. And, yeah, Wunmi, because we know who she is, TVA, Loki, Deadpool, and Wolverine, all that, yeah. And she, too, being absolutely no disappointment in Sinners whatsoever. Another talented, great actress, and to be a part of Ryan Coogler's Sinners, the character that she brings to life in this, outstanding. Okay, but back on point, because, yeah, Smoke, because he makes a stop where he and Stack's father has been buried and such, and that's when he would be greeted and reunite with his ex-partner, Annie, as I've already mentioned. Yeah, so they're ex-partners. And not to mention that they would have almost been parents. And even Annie was still having some loving and careness for Smoke and his identical twin brother, Stack. She's been praying for their safety and all that, but Smoke just, then at one point asking her, why the prayers didn't work for their child that they sadly lost. Again, they would have had a child, but which didn't come to be. And obviously, it's one of those reasons, clearly, because why they split apart. But it seems as though they managed to rekindle. And also, Annie is quite an expert doing some hoodoo stuff and all that, Even when, say, Annie gave this to Smoke, a mojo bag. Yeah, and it's referred to as the protection pouch. Where Annie gave it to Smoke, and it represents a scarred hoodoo tradition of spiritual, ancestral protection and such. But yeah, so that kind of stuff that Annie does with hoodoo and all that, Anyways, and like I said, they managed to rekindle, even say have a bit of sex and such, but in the end, she would tag along with Smoke to the juke joint. And by this point, everybody is starting to come to the juke joint. We see the Chows packing up. We see Stack, whom in the car with him, Sammy, Delta, and Cornbread. Yep, they're all coming and such. But then at one point, we would then see our main vampire himself, the one who's gonna start things all hell gonna be unleashed at the juke joint. Yeah, because we know he's gonna be going there. A Jewish immigrant vampire by the name of Remick. And Remick being played by another good talent in this, Jack O'Connell. Yes. Jack O'Connell, well, we know who Jack O'Connell is, and in movies that we've seen him before, I as well. And Jack O'Connell playing the one of the other main antagonists, the vampire, just amazing. So he makes his way, he managed to escape from some Injuns, and he comes to this clan couple's house. And, oh yeah, because, remember what I said earlier about Hogwood and with the clan where he's the leader, or known as the Grand Dragon, the Ku Klux Klan? Yeah, and I know, because I remember, jeez. Anyways, so yeah, we do get a quick glimpse of that this clan couple, one of them has their clan wardrobe there. Anyways, it's got me thinking, because even best way to refer to that, most prominently in Forrest Gump, white ghosts and such. That whole thing that Forrest said, wearing sheets like ghosts or something. That's another good way to put at it. Anyways. Okay, so we have our clan couple. We have Bert being played by Peter Duramanis, I think I said that right, and Joan being played by Lola Kirk. Yeah, because there's an E at the end, but yeah. So we have them, and, because Remick is seeking shelter because of whom he's being chased after, and he's obviously lying to them and saying that they killed his wife and all that. But, and they fall for this. They managed to fall for this, and, they let him in and such. And that's when we see the engines arrive, and, they knock, and one of them knocks, and that's, because, we have Chayton, I believe, because that'd be him. Chayton being played by Nathaniel Arkand, because knocking on the door, and, because, trying to warn, and it's Joan who answers, warning her about, whom, if so, they've let in their house and all that, and that he's very dangerous, and they tried to lock him up, but of course he escaped, and and even say, one of the other engines warns, Chayton to, that they have to go, because the sun is about to set, and we know where that's going to lead to, so, So unfortunately, they did their very best, and, just all they can do now, and with Chayden telling Joanne to, have God protect them and all of that, just, yeah, God, just God have mercy on their souls and all that. Yeah. Anyway, so the engines, they disembark, and when Joanne goes to check on Bert, well, we can see that Remick had already taken care of Bert, not to mention, obviously, did something horrible to their baby. And Bert waking up and, hi, honey, it's all right. And her letting out a gutching scream, and, that's the end of her. Her, like her husband first, about to become vampires, and now they're going to be alongside with Remick, and where this is going to lead to next. Oh, jeez. Okay, so we now come to nighttime and at the juke joint. And this is where, well, the rest of the movie happens and such. Everybody arriving at the juke joint, and surprisingly, Mary shows up to the juke joint as well. And a lot of those at the juke joint, from Cornbread to the Chows, they know whom Mary is, and, well, Mary didn't recognize him at first at the train station, Sammy. Then when she realizes that it's Sammy, now a bit older, she actually, very nice of her, buys him a drink and such. And now that seems though Sammy is quite old enough to have a drink and such. And, well, she would also realize that, the Stack brothers having quite a lot of money to acquire the sawmill, and yet they didn't send any flowers to her late mother. And on account that they never showed up to the wedding. Not even say they couldn't send flowers? Jeez, that's harsh. And again, like I said early, when we learned that Mary's mother helped and raise / nurse Smoke and Stack after what happened to their father and such. Yeah, she was also responsible for saving their lives. Yeah. And, well, of course, Stack being informed that Mary's here, even say when there is a little bit of a conversation between Smoke and Stack, and Smoke and Mary, I should say. But when it comes to Stack and Mary, because, well, I mean Stack, he gave everything to her, a nice place to live, a nice, wealthy guy to marry and all that, but she never really wanted that stuff. And still wanting to know the truth from Stack, because why? Doing this just, why he ditched her and all that? Because, well, that's when he comes clean, and just because with the business that he and Smoke are in, and from Chicago and all that, if Mary was to have been known to be linked with them, then her life would be in danger. And if anything were to happen to Mary, well, Stack, he would determine to take down anybody that, causes harm, lays a finger on Mary. And that right there, because see, it does show that he really does care and love for Mary, but doesn't want to risk her own life. That is understandable, and it's complicated. It's one of those things that, for him, it's complicated. It very is. And sadly, Mary can't handle that. It's unfortunate. Just one of those things, to some people, to one person or such, just not easy, and just can't agree on, just that kind of stuff. But anyways, after that, well, with the dance happening and everybody playing, and Delta, he's at the piano playing, well, he would then call up Sammy to come up on stage and to perform a song on the guitar, and he would do so. And apparently, this would, with Sammy performing and singing a song, this would have spirits from the past and future to be present and dance. The evolution of dancing and singing instruments, all that, and on account of the song number that plays. Not to mention the song that Sammy sings is in dedication to his father. That's very nice. Yeah, and again, the griot that Sammy's considered, that whole thing. And, well, because, when realizing that Sammy has become a legend, he is a legend, and, yeah. And by the way, because the songs in Sinners, they are some pretty good ones, especially those that are sung by Sammy, and some iconic moments to come from this movie, and where we're up to now. Just, yeah. Yeah, just, like, what more do I have to say? Just the songs that were written for this movie, just, they were really good ones. And very, cleverly done, and, with it, and again, on account of spirits from musical spirits and such, from past, present, like a rock and roll guitar player, a rapper, DJ player, and different people from other cultures, them dancing and all that, just, that's amazing. And the way the camera turns and so on, just, you get my point, just, that was amazing right there. Wouldn't you think so? Of course you would. Okay, and after that song slash dance number, basically, that sequence, well, and even right towards the end of it, are now three vampires, and the one being the leader, Remick. They've made their way to the juke joint, and they can clearly hear the singing of Sammy and all that, and yeah, just being fascinated and with what they're going to do, because they've basically been lured by the legend, which means Sammy and all that. But what would happen next, and right before they had tried to attempt to go inside the juke joint, there is a moment between Perline and Sammy. And because she said she was a married woman, I don't think she is. Just, yeah, seriously. Because there's a moment between both of them where they do have sex. Sammy gives intercourse, basically. And even at one point, one of the twins, one of them can hear what's happening in that room, and just being like, damn, Sammy, just... Anyways, then there would be a moment where, the Stack twins, they're talking about how much money they've made and on account of the juke joint and such. But then, and to speed things up some, because, when it would come to the three vampires trying to get inside of the juke joint, and, Cornbread, because how he handles them, but when everybody else comes up to see what's going on right outside, the twins, Mary, Annie, then Sammy and Perline would come out, and the three vampires, they would compliment on Sammy for his beautiful singing and the fact that they can hear it through those walls and such. And they establish that, they too are here. They want to perform something, and they play on banjos and such, but, the twins, they just tell them to just go away. They don't want them here. And they do point out, why is she here? They're pointing towards Mary. They're pointing at Mary, but Annie makes it very clear to them that Mary is family. And that's true. Yes, technically she is. So, that's understandable. And because Remick, we're going to slowly walk away in case you change your minds, but of course they don't. They're not going to let those three in. But, even didn't take too long for the three of them to give Annie the willies and such. But that was very suspicious and odd for them, and boy, they had no idea what they were in for with those three. Okay, and then what would happen next is two different conversations are happening. Sammy having a conversation with Smoke, while Mary has a conversation with Stack. With what's going on between Sammy and Smoke. Sammy, thanking Smoke and also Stack for the night that just happened, where, Sammy really got to shine, really show what he's best at, being a really good musician, singing and all of that, and everybody loved it. They all got a kick at what Sammy did. And, even because Smoke and obviously also Stack being very proud on the performance that Sammy brought. And Sammy would mention to Smoke that he's considering on maybe going to Chicago and doing some performing there. But Smoke, he does not take this very well and tells Sammy to just screw it, forget that, just don't do it at all. And it gets very intense and such. Meanwhile, between Mary and Stack, maybe possibly Mary can manage to get some money from those three, and on account of with what was mentioned, and because with both Stack and Smoke, the money that they have and all that and such, Mary managing to convince Stack, and even Stack lending Mary one of his guns. And because, just in case, of course. And boy, because good thing she did have it. But, well, this comes to where Mary would meet with the three of them still out there, and they're performing and singing. And right after they were done, she did clap and, asked if they had any money on them. And, yeah, Remick kindly so lends some money to Mary, but this kind of money that they have is, and according to Remick, it's something, different and from a different place and such, different time, and then it would be brought up by Mary because about the passing of her mother recently, and Remick, very sorry and condolences and wishing that he could have done something to, save Mary's mother. And it gets very intense, very creepy, not to mention when Remick's eyes start to glow red. Yeah, his eyes are now red, and he starts to drool, and Mary just, taking quick action, pointing a gun at them, just telling them to go away. And well, at least she didn't get attacked or anything, because, she had that gun in handy, and all that. But when she turned away, started to walk back, we can see Remick, about to jump, lunging at her. Oh, yeah, because, oh dear. Well, sadly, that would be the end of Mary, as now she would become a vampire. Poor Mary. So, with Mary now making her way back inside, well, what would happen next is she would manage to seduce Stack, and they would have some privacy to their own, making love and all that. Even say when he noticed at one point Mary was drooling, but Mary just then asking him if he wants some, spitting some drool in his mouth. Jeez Louise. Oh well. But yeah, and while that's going on, because we have more dancing and singing going on, and this time from Paralyn, yeah, because we see her performing on stage, and so much more happening in the juke joint and such, and all while we would sometimes cut to, the personal / private business between Mary and Stack. But things would escalate when, because Smoke asked Sammy to call up Stack to talk about something, but, Sammy, because he didn't want to disturb the privacy and such, and then would it lead to Smoke, But eventually, when Smoke would come in and what he would discover, and a few others, what they see, Mary went for Stack on the neck and such, thirsting on his blood and such, and basically killing him. And oh gosh, that shot with Haley Steinfeld, with those eyes and the vampire teeth, the blood, just you know what I'm talking about. Oh, that's so amazing, just golly. And Smoke takes quick action by shooting Mary down, but of course Mary, now vampire, she's unable to die, and just saying that she'll be back and they'll all be back basically. So she makes a run for it, laughing and all that, and leaving poor Stack paralyzed, blood having been spewed out of him, losing a lot of blood, and mayhem that has been caused at the juke joint, and, the Chows and the others, they tell all the guests that party's over. They need to go now, because, and, that's it. The party's over. There's nothing else to be done. And, even Smoke being there by Stack's side, even asking Annie if she can do anything to help Stack, but fortunately, nothing. It's too late, especially because, unfortunately, for a little bit, Stack does die in Smoke's hands. A very sad moment, but obviously, we know that Stack, not dead, he will resurrect, this time as a vampire. Oh dear. And again, because It's a very sad moment, and especially for Smoke, refusing to move Stack's body, from that room. And, well, what would happen is that they would leave Stack's body in there, and Annie tells Sammy to guard the door if anything happens. And, and again, because if there was anything Annie would have been able to do to save and bring back Stack to life, and because Smoke asked her, well, no, because that's impossible, just impossible for her. Because then what would happen next, and to still speed things up some, because, well, Cornbread, he actually went for a potty break at one point, but he didn't come back, and especially on account on what would happen to poor Cornbread. And it does get very suspicious, from Cornbread into those. They find it very suspicious with Cornbread and his attitude and such, insulting some of them, and, just wanting his money, and, he just wants to go and all that. And, because, they know something's off with Cornbread. And when it would lead to, say, Smoke was gonna hand Cornbread's money, well, knew this was coming, right? Where, just by about to bite on his hand, but Smoke took quick action, shooting him in the face. Half of his face was messed up by the mouth. And, sadly, Cornbread has well turned into a vampire. That's unfortunate. And also, early on, Mr. Chow, he had went outside to fetch the car and such, and, well, his wife Grace was worried that maybe because something might happen or anything like that, but she is assured that maybe, hopefully, Bo got in the car and must have head back for some backup or something. And then at one point, another moment at one point where, well, Stack, he's back to life, this time as a vampire, knocking on the door, wanting to be let out. He pokes a hole through the door with a dagger he has, a knife, and, Annie makes it very clear to Smoke that that's no longer his brother, Stack, because, Stack is gone. He's now a vampire and such. A different version of Stack who's now a vampire. And then Annie would realize, and when Stack would get out, he would break free and escape and leave the juke joint. Annie realizes that what they're dealing with are vampires, and she's heard many stories about vampires and the facts that she shares with them at times, and it would lead to where they need to prepare themselves. They gotta have some special equipment to take on the vampires, which basically, those being garlic, wood, silver, and holy water. All those basic things that, vampires are not fond of. Also, not to mention, the specific garlic they're using are pickle garlics. Garlic pickles. Ugh, who would want to eat garlic pickles? Personally, I wouldn't, but hey. If in a situation like this, okay, as much as I would not like the taste of them, I'd have no other choice but to eat them for my own protection. In the case of vampires, wouldn't you? Okay, and by the way, because with the stories that Annie knew about the vampires, and with the specific things and details that she tells them, well, because, saying that, the vampire swapping a person's body, soul and all that, and, overall, because, the soul being trapped, but can't, be joined with the ancestors and all that. Interesting details and such that she points out on that. And you know this too, you've seen the movie. And again, the specific items and stuff that need to be used in order to take down a vampire. And, even when Smoke asks Annie if there's any way they can, save them from being vampires and such, but no, not even say when, going for Remick, and also the mentioning of, sunlight and a stick, in order to take down the vampire officially, and by freeing the soul, Remick's soul, and all that, just again, the certain details and with what Annie says is pretty interesting. Also, it's then brought up where Samuel thinks that he's responsible for all that's happened, and mentioning that his father once told him that the music that he plays and such would summon the devil, evil, and all that. But Delta would assure Samuel that, having to face the devil, having to face him and all that, just, something positive and nothing too bad, and that it's not really Samuel's fault, basically. No, Sammy. And man, because a few times where they would step outside and, because, there's a moment where Smoke and Sammy, they can see that all the vampires are there. They're dancing and singing, and because all some of them going around in a circle, and we can see some of them dancing, and we of course can most prominently see Remick, the clan couple. I said clan. Cornbread, of course, and Mary and Stack all dancing and such, and and all of them just waiting for the opportunity to step foot in the juke joint and such, and just, things are starting to get really intense. We are almost getting there, jeez. So, what happens next, and to still speed things up some, there is a moment where Annie asks Smoke that if she is to become a vampire, if she gets bitten, all that, she wants him to free her spirit no matter what. It has to be done if this happens. If anything happens to her or anybody else. Then Annie has all of them each have pieces of garlic, but one of them is very hesitant at first on account of the horrific, gross smell. Yeah, I don't blame you, girl. Yeah, that being Perlin. But Smoke getting very suspicious, whipping out a gun. Even when Sammy, what are you doing? But, ouch, he got hit in the mouth with the gun, and his fist and the gun, and his fist with the gun is in his fist. Yeah, jeez. Well, this is dead serious with what's happening, and, she's got to take it. Perlin's got to take it, which she does so. Then when Delta takes it, he's acting a bit funny, but that's because he drank too much, and man, the garlic did not settle with him on account of how much he drank and such. Ugh. So they all seem fine. Not affected by the vampire's curse, spirit, and all that. Then there's someone else who technically, did fill in for Cornbread. Yeah, just someone else who was a part of the juke joint. The door being locked outside and pounding on it, and, because he notices Cornbread coming over, just pounding on the door, begging for him to be let in, but sadly, it's too late. Once that door opened, then he was lunged by Cornbread. And while that's going on, Bo Chow shows up. He seems okay, but nope. Clearly that's not the case, because he's now gotten bitten by a vampire. Now he is one, trying to lure his wife to come over to him, and they can go in the car and leave. But of course, that's when they realize that, of course, Bo has now become a vampire, and things getting more intense. And even when, Remick and a few others, they come up outside of the entrance to Juke Joint, and Remick basically explaining that they have come for Sammy, and on account of his music, and saying that Sammy's music will help bring back some old, some of Remick's old people and such, fellow vampires and so on. And, Sammy, he was willing to give himself up to the vampires, but Delta and Smoke, they stop/prevent Sammy from doing that. They're not going to let any harm come on Sammy, because he's family, and he belongs with them. And then Remick would give some details to Smoke and the others that Hogwood, whom they met earlier that same day, and as I did mention, Hogwood being the leader of this clan, which because, and saying that Hogwood and his fellow men would arrive the next day, and they're going to arrive the next day to cause an ambush and, attack them and such. And Remick explaining that all of them can be turned into vampires, and it will be like heaven to them, like they never died and all that, for all eternity and such. But Well, of course they're not going to go along with this. They want to live. They don't want to become vampires. Just, yeah. And, well, because they don't care with what Remick says and all the others, what each of them say, from the clan couple to Mary and Stack. Just, yeah, they want no part of it, and thus they close the door on them. And then Mrs. Chow, Grace Chow, she would become very intense and be just very upset, and just with the thought that she could wound up losing her own daughter to the vampires. And if so, with everybody in town, in Mississippi, that part of Mississippi, being turned into vampires, especially Grace's daughter, and she demands to Smoke that they just give in. They just give up and surrender to the vampires and accept that and such. But nope. Of course they're not going to do so, and, Grace has to chill and focus. Yeah, come on, girl, you have to. And hopefully there will be a chance that your daughter will live a happy life. Indeed. Well, however, she doesn't. Nope. In fact, right before Grace, she actually just insulted Smoke, like just pointing out what he did earlier, shooting those two guys that were trying to get in the back of the truck and such, and he did nothing to save his brother and such. And then, yes, it would lead to where Grace, she flat out tells the vampires to come right in the juke joint. And, well, everybody else, they take quick action, preparing and getting all their weapons, and, well, thus the vampires, they would step in, and thus the battle begins. Yeah, so, the battle between them and the vampires, shooting them, stabbing them, and fire being unleashed, and, because Grace Chow, she flat out is just like gives her life when she lunges at one of the vampires, burning them and burning herself. She doesn't even care that she's being burned, and yeah, she would die. Golly, we would see like what's left of Grace being burned to a crisp. Golly, but then like say, yeah, because. Like what Annie said earlier, and it ends up happening, where Annie does get attacked and lunged by one of the vampires, which being Stack. Yeah, he's the one that lunges at Annie, and Smoke having to shoot him and such, and, well, Annie told Smoke to keep his word to do so, and, well, Smoke, saying to her that I love you, and, even when Annie says to him that, see you on the other side, he does so by stabbing her. The vampires, they actually react to this, where Annie is getting stabbed, and Stack, he takes quick action to get Mary out of there, and that's the last we see of Mary, for now. I'm pretty sure that, yeah, I did have a good feeling, and I'm sure the same goes for all of us, because when we didn't see anything else of Mary, then when it would come to Stack, like, but until I get there. Yeah, but continuing on, because, yeah, with the battle still continuing, now we've sadly lost Annie, and, well, then there's a moment where Delta, he would sacrifice himself, get every of the last survivors upstairs. All that's now left, besides Delta, is Perlin, Sammy, Smoke, yeah. So Delta, he has them go upstairs while he drinks the rest of some alcohol from the bottle, he breaks it, cuts himself, and just like, come get me, just, yeah, distracting them and like bait and such. And yeah, ultimately Delta, he sacrifices himself to the vampires. But yeah, then say at one point when they're up on the second floor of the sawmill / the juke joint, well, that's when Remick steps in, trying to lunge at Sammy. But of course, Smoke taking quick action, and unfortunately, Perlin would meet her demise when she gets attacked, and then she would be shot and her soul would be saved and all that, and not being turned to a vampire. Then Stack would step back in and go up against his twin brother Smoke. And even when, say, Sammy, he tried to make a run for it. He jumped off of the window from the second floor of the sawmill, trying to make a run for it, but Remick, he got up to him and was about to, attack him and all that, and even say when they're up at a river. And when they're in the river, there is a moment where Sammy starts to say this, then Remick joins in, as well as all the other vampires that come out, by saying, "Our Father, who art thou in heaven," that we all say in church. And with that going on, because, confrontation between Smoke and Stack. Smoke was this close to stabbing Stack, but, because... and even Smoke, because before he was about to stab Stack, he apologized to his twin brother for, not been able to save him. And just, man, with what Stack says in return, and technically, that's the last we see of Stack. It's presumed that maybe he did get stabbed. Well, we don't know that for sure. Yeah. And then Sammy, after finishing that prayer, at one point Sammy... he uses the guitar, smacks it right in the face of Remick, leaving some woundness on him and impaled in his face. It's in there. Just jeez. And not to mention, Annie pointed this out during the battle that the vampires, they can feel the pain that Remick feels. Well, because Remick being the main vampire, of course, the leader of these group of vampires, these villainous vampires. I gotta slow down. Remick, he was about to lunge and, kill Sammy, but just in the nick of time, he is impaled, stabbed right through the chest and through the heart by Smoke. Yes, Smoke having arrived in time, finishing off Remick, and by the time the sun rises, all of the vampires... they start to burn in flames, and the same goes for Remick. Like a tornado of flames, and Remick is done for once and for all. Sayonara, Remick. No remorse for you. Anyways, so after all that, hopefully the nightmare is over. Well, kind of, because, as Remick mentioned early on, Hogwood and his clan gang would be showing up by the next day, and now the next day has arrived, and a moment where Sammy and Smoke, whom by this point they're the only two surviving people at the juke joint, they unload the truck. Smoke encourages Sammy to bury the guitar, but Sammy points out that according to Stack, that guitar belonged to Charlie Patton, but then it would be said by Smoke that guitar belonged to their father, and, gives the keys to Sammy, his car, giving the car keys to Sammy, and telling him to get out of here and go to the church and all that, and that's where it would lead to what we first saw at the start of this movie. Now we know we're caught up. With Sammy having gone to the church, meanwhile Smoke, preparing himself for the arrival of Hogwood and the rest of the members of Hogwood's clan. And when they arrive, they're about to do the attack, the ambush, but, the fact that the door's locked and, doesn't take too long for Smoke to unload gunfire at Hogwood and those clan guys using a Tommy gun. It's cool that we finally get to see a Tommy gun being used. Fast-pacing bullets and such. Anyways. And man, Smoke takes them down instantly. Even, using a bombing one of the cars, and he managed to take all of them down. And the last surviving one, which being Hogwood, he's spared momentarily. And, just letting Hogwood just suffer in pain and with the wounds he has on him. And even when Smoke asked for a light and such, smoking and such, a cigarette. And when coming back to Sammy, and like what we saw at the start, arriving at the church and asking for forgiveness and all that, and his father, encouraging him to put the guitar down and so on. But Sammy finding it very difficult to do so, and again, even though there's nothing that much left of the guitar still. But, And then what would happen next when we come back to Smoke? He then collapses, and, he would then finish off Hogwood, even when Hogwood mentioned to him about, having money and such. Just forget that now. You're dead. Goodbye. And then Smoke would start to envision seeing Annie holding their baby child. Yeah, and passing on their child to Smoke in his hands, and yeah. Presumably, Smoke, he's now dead, pretty much, yeah. And when coming back to Sammy, well, turns out that he did not put down what was left of that guitar. And what he does is, like what he said before, go to Chicago, and he would pursue his dream of being a blues musician, which, yes, that's exactly what he does. Fast forward 60 years later, in Chicago of 1992, we would see Old Sammy being played by Buddy Guy. He's there performing at a concert, at a, jazz club and such, and and it's obvious that by this point and how old he is, he's a big hit, yeah. And when we see that, the credits start to roll, but the movie's not done just yet, because we do get a long mid-credit scene, then we get a post-credit scene, a short one. But of course, starting with the mid-credit scene, of course. So, with what happens in the mid-credit scene? Well, after, later that evening, Old Sammy had finished performing, and by this point, the bar is closed and such. Well, a bouncer informs Old Sammy about these two people that want to meet with him, and well, Old Sammy, see no problem with it and has the bouncer let them in. And by the way, because the bouncer being played by Thaddeus Crane, and also the bartender being played by Michael A. Newcomer. So just wanted to mention them. And some of the other cast members, we have Party Goer being played by Deneen Tyler, Jeff played by Justin William Davis, Chris being played by Christian Robinson, Jacob, Nicoy Banks, and Patterson played by Graylin Bryant Banks, and a Mississippi Choctaw horseback scout being played by Markel Patrick. And yeah, that's the rest of the cast members. And those that are uncredited, because, yeah, Fernando Lara plays one of the Native American vampire hunters, the Injuns. Juke Joint / Vampire played one of them, being played by Jermaine McTizik, if I said that right. Smoke and Stack's body double number 2. Filling in for, well, Michael B. Jordan, of course. Paul Sampson. Downtown / Trevor, played by Calvin Williams, and Townsperson, played by Callian Wolf. Okay, so just wanted to name the uncredited people, and also Dancer, just called Dancer, played by Alex Hune. If I said that right, I don't know. Okay, but back on point with the mid-credit scene. So, if it's not obvious already who those two people are that come in, meet with Old Sammy after all these years, it's Mary and Stack. Yes, they've been living their lives, and who knows, maybe they've been turning other people into vampires, luring them in and such. Who knows? I mean, of course, it's not established. And seeing them in the 90s getup, and they're wearing shades, and even Mary, she's sucking on a sucker, I guess a Tootsie Pop or something. I just, anyways. So yeah, they meet with Old Sammy, and yeah, because it turns out that Smoke spared Stack's life, because Smoke couldn't find it in him to kill his twin brother. And according to Stack, Smoke told Stack to stay away from Sammy, let him live his life. Maybe at some point, and, at a right time, Stack could interact and reunite with Sammy, and here we are now. Same goes for Mary. And we do see that, apparently Stack had Mary evacuate / aboard the juke joint and just, run out of there and not be in the middle of what else was going to happen. Yeah, so that explains it. And yeah, so they were the last two remaining vampires, and I'll be honest, it's nice to see that those two were spared, because I'm just simply saying, because, if you think about it, and if you're like, yeah, I see what you mean, just anyways. And, they'd, even, like, Stack and Mary, they offer some immortality for old Sammy, but he refuses. He doesn't want any part of it. Not to mention, you realize that old Sammy, he has scars on his face? Well, an account on when he got attacked and such. Nice detail, yeah. Then old Sammy would play a tune for both Stack and Mary. And yeah, reminders of the good old days before the mayhem was unleashed at the juke joint. And, well, in the end, they start to disembark, leave the place, but old Sammy says one more thing to them about the fact that the night before, like that evening, before all hell was let loose from starting with Remick and those two clan couple, that clan couple who became vampires, before they stepped in, it was the best night of Sammy's life when he performed and so on. And yeah, I mean, Stack and Mary, they seem to agree on that. So I'd like to think, and I'm sure they seem to be on good terms, but, because knowing Stack and Mary, both of them being vampires, and with whatever they're doing, I mean, again, it's not really established, because we are left to assume that maybe because they might have turned others into vampires, or maybe they just been keeping that all in secret, and maybe they've been living their lives. Yeah, and is it me, or, yeah, because it kind of leaves the door opening for what else could happen in the world of Sinners. But yeah, but that was a pretty good mid-credit scene. And yeah, the post-credit scene, well, we would come back to young Sammy, where he's just singing a song, and once he finishes, boom, the movie finishes, the Warner Brothers logo showing, just, yeah. Wow, just what a heck of a way for Sinners to end off like that, with those two end credit scenes, with what the mid-credit scene had to offer, seeing that Stack and Mary survived, and getting one last bit of taste of Sammy singing a song on the guitar. Awesome, just, yeah. Oh man, just, yeah. Sinners. Ryan Coogler's Sinners. Again, it's one of, if not, and if I'm right, I'm sure I am, yeah, you would think so too, one of Ryan Coogler's top movie masterpieces that he's brought to life after, say, Black Panther, and being one of the top best vampire films, a movie masterpiece, all about vampires and such, and with what this vampire film had to offer specifically, everything about Sinners from beginning to end, the storyline, great cast of talents, from Michael B. Jordan, Haley Steinfeld, and Omar Benson Miller, Wunmi Mosaku, and Jamie Lawson, and Jack O'Connell, Miles Catton, Saul Williams. The list goes on. Ryan Coogler's direction, the cinematography, the way this movie was filmed, the visual effects, Ludwig's music and score, the intenseful moments, the emotional moments, the drama, a few funny moments here and there. Especially I can think of, say, Delta, because after so much happened outside of the juke joint, he at one point said that he shit himself. And yes, because Delroy Lindo, he too was another good talent in this. Everybody was. The way the vampires are portrayed, the time and setting of this in Mississippi in the 1930s, and then at the end of the movie in Chicago of 1992, the aftermath of all that happened in the early 1930s, where Sammy is now, and the fact that, after Remick and all those vampires right outside of the juke joint, they were all dead. Only two survived, and that, of course, being Stack and Mary. The chemistry and character development, the interactions between each of these characters, great performances from all of them. Dueling performances from Michael B. Jordan. The blood, the gruesome stuff, just overall. Ryan Coogler's Sinners, it's a masterpiece, without a doubt, and I love it. Yeah, and I'm sure the same goes for you. And I'm giving Sinners, well, is it obvious? 10 out of 10 stars, yes. 10 out of 10 stars for Ryan Coogler's Sinners. And what about you guys? What did you think of Ryan Coogler's Sinners itself? what was your first impression? The first time, I'm talking the first time, like me, you heard about this, that it was announced that Ryan Coogler was going to make his own vampire film, and the cast members that were announced, were you anticipated for this? Was it one of your top anticipated films for 2025? Did you see this in theaters? I'm sure you did. And if you experienced seeing this in IMAX, because yeah, with the IMAX shots in this movie, and when the widescreen becomes full screen, all that, and when I did my rewatch, just amazing. Just amazing. And yeah, who were some of your favorite performances, favorite characters, moments you didn't expect, and how you felt with the whole thing of the vampires, how they were done and portrayed in this vampire film from the genius mind of Ryan Coogler. And yeah, did you get... Yeah, I'm sure you got a bit teary-eyed because there are those moments. Were you surprised with how the movie ended and on account of one of its end credit scenes? Did you have a good feeling that, there's obviously going to be a few vampires that survived, and that most prominently being Stack and Mary? Were you amazed to see the dueling performances of Michael B. Jordan? Favorite lines, favorite moments from this movie, quotes, all that. Is it now one of your top favorite vampire films? One of your top favorite films from Ryan Coogler? What more do I really have to say? Just overall, what do you think of Ryan Coogler's Sinners itself with what all I've had to say, my review, and what did you think of my review? Leave comments and give this review video a like as always. And so, guys, with all that being said, thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of Ryan Coogler's Sinners. More review videos are coming your way. They're going to be awesome. Keep looking forward, and I will see you guys in the next video / review. And, well, with all that being said, this year's Halloweenish reviews on the weekdays has now come to an end. Yes, come to an end / come to a close. Yeah, I gotta say, this year's batch of Halloweenish reviews on the weekdays was actually pretty fun and a good one, I think. And I'm sure you guys would probably think so too. With the selection of Halloweenish films that I've reviewed, yeah, I'm pretty sure, because I did. I picked some pretty good ones. And to close it off with Sinners, I couldn't be more proud of myself. I'm just saying, because again, I think, with me having chosen Sinners to be the last one to review, just, very satisfying, don't you think? Yeah. But so again, this was a lot of fun with what Halloweenish films I've reviewed for this year's Halloweenish reviews on the weekdays, and I can't wait for next year. Yeah, and I'm sure the same goes for you. So, with all that being said, guys, thank you very much for watching. Take care, and until next year's Halloweenish reviews on the weekdays, peace out, and for one last time, happy Halloween to all.